Hi guys, and welcome to my review of Mission Impossible Season 1, Episode 9, entitled A Spool There Was. In this episode, Dan and his team are tasked with retrieving a piece of recording wire that contains possible plans for a nuclear weapon to be used against the United States by a country that I guess you could qualify as being a communist country. That piece of recording wire was smuggled out by a former I.M.F agent that, in the process of trying to get exfilled, was murdered by the regime that was running this country. The problem is he hid the wire so ingeniously that not even the people that killed him can find it. The thing that makes this mission a little bit more complicated than others is the fact that other countries not friendly to the US also have agents trying to covertly go into the country and find the piece of recording wire for themselves. So that brings up sort of the main thrust of this episode, in that Dan can't go in to this country with his full complement of I.M.F agents, because if he goes in there with a full complement, it is really possible that this unfriendly team of, let's call them I.M.F agents for now, would easily spot them. So that's why Dan just picks two people to go into this country and get the piece of recording wire back. And the two people that he picks are Cinnamon and Rollin. At the time, the actors who play Cinnamon Carter and Rollin Hand were actually married. And I would have to say that this episode is a highlight just on the chemistry that Martin Landau and Barbara Brains show in particular. I really enjoyed watching them just sort of maneuver around this country, trying to find the piece of recording wire and trying to subvert the people that are in charge of this country. So not only do Rollin and Cinnamon have to deal with them, but they also have to find the other agents from the other countries. One thing that I didn't appreciate is when Rollin actually goes and tries to look for the microfilm for the first time, he actually does it under the cover of darkness. And when he is discovered by one of the guards who is guarding the supposed area of where this former I.M.F agent has left the piece of recording wire, the cameras that they used to film this episode, I guess, were high quality at the time, but it was really hard for me to tell at all what was happening in this scene because the film was so dark. I mean, I could surmise what was happening, and I could put it together in certain spots when Rollin was running back to Cinnamon's room. There, the camera light was bright enough for me to sort of get a gauge of what was happening. But when Rollin confronted one of the guards for the first time, I really couldn't tell, what was what. Prior to the mission starting, Dan actually recorded an entire conversation between Rollin and Cinnamon that they would have once Rollin went to Cinnamon's room, and they would actually start talking, and then the conversation would reach such a point where, if they were being bugged, Rollin had an opportunity to actually leave the hotel and search for the recording wire. Now, because of what I mentioned just a couple seconds ago, Rollin was a little late. I mean, he only had 45 minutes to leave the hotel room, search for the recording wire, and get back. And it is safe to say that if it wasn't for Cinnamons quick thinking, I believe that the people surveilling her room would have known something was amiss and probably arrested her, and that would have probably led to her death. What I'm trying to say is that I really liked Cinnamon's powers of improvisation while Rollin was a little late getting back to the hotel room. I thought that really showed her acting strength and her improvisation as a spy. One thing that I did enjoy is when Rollin found himself fighting the enemy agent from the other country in the warehouse. I thought that that scene was well staged and put together because of the cans and the drums in the warehouse. Now I understand that I had to suspend some belief, some disbelief, because I find it really hard to suspend my disbelief in a country that seems so well monitored by the people that are running it that nobody would hear a fight in what seemed to be an open warehouse in the middle of the day. I first thought that Rollin should have broken his neck and killed him, but I thought better of it and I said to myself, that's not a good idea because that's going to bring more attention to what they're doing and they possibly won't be able to get out of the country with the piece of recording wire. The ingenious thing about this episode is that this fallen I.M.F agent put the microfilm right in the main square of the country, you know, as guarding wire, guarding basically a shrub. I really enjoyed the will over the eyes that this fallen I.M.F agent put these guys, put these soldiers through. When Rollin does eventually find it, he's smart enough to make a deal with a local boy that is doing some fishing there to the point where he proposes a trade with this local boy of saying, okay, listen, I'll give you my wire if you give me that wire. So the boy takes it back to his parents' house. Cinnamon tries to confirm that the piece of wire is there by running this game that she's a photographer and she wants to take pictures of this boy because she finds him so appealing. But to the boy's mother's credit, I'm starting to lose it here, but I don't care. To the boy's mother's credit, she is quote unquote suspicious of Cinnabon's credibility as a photographer. She was sort of dismissive and let Cinnamon, go on her way. This brings me to something that I really didn't enjoy. When Cinnamon leaves the little boy's house, she's walking back to her hotel room, and this stupid, really, really, really stupid other agents from the other country follow her really, really close till she finds a bench somewhere and she puts down her camera. Now in the camera, before the mission began, Barney put a piece of fake wire that that if Cinnamon was caught and they opened the camera, they would find the wire, thinking that this was a wire that they were looking for all along. And Cinnamon sits down on the bench for a minute. Maybe it's less than 5 seconds. She leaves the camera there, and these stupid agents open the camera, find the wire, and basically from across the street, the officials swarm the other agents and take them into custody, thinking that they have their microfilm. So these agents from this other country are just asinine and stupid. I enjoyed seeing the ineptitude of these two agents. Wrapping it up here, I did think that the finale of this episode was fantastic. For their exfil, Cinnamon tells their ally from the I.M.F to actually take all his balloons out of his shop, make the balloons wires longer than usual, and release them into the atmosphere, while the guards are looking for Rollin, because they actually have a inkling that Rollin is basically a person of interest, and they want to question him because they probably believe that he has a microfilm. While everyone is in a panic and watching the balloons go up in the sky, this I.M.F agent says that Rollin attacked him and he put some wire on one of the balloons that is up in the sky. So everybody goes nuts and starts shooting the balloons. While everyone is doing that, Cinnamon and Rollin, get onto a boat and and get away. Really bought into the chemistry that was given to this episode by Martin Landau and Barbara Baines. And like I said before, it's because at the time they were married. And the last line of this episode is great. Simon goes, I think this has been the loveliest mission yet. With that being said, my grade for this episode would be a solid B. Alright guys, well that does it for my review of Mission Impossible Season 1, Episode 9, entitled A Spool There Was. In the comments below, if you've seen this episode, tell me what you thought about it, tell me what you liked about it, tell me what you didn't like about it. But until next time, as always, I'll see you when I see you.
So much happened here, and so much is about to.